All right, hopefully everybody can hear me. Try to avoid some feedback here, sorry. I think we've got it all set. So we did cover service maps. We looked at how to use service maps to get an overview of your application. We talked a little bit about getting into our New Relic training account. And so after lunch here, the plan is to allow you guys to get some hands-on experience. I see more people than I saw before lunch, so I think we've got some new folks as well. We've got David in the back of the room to kind of help out. I'll walk around as well. And what we're going to try and do is get everybody into the New Relic account. What we've done over lunch is we've taken the registration list, loaded that into essentially an NRU account. The reason we do that is it's a chance for you guys to play with New Relic infrastructure here. It's going to be potentially some time, even though the beta has just come out today, and the ability to sign up for New Relic infrastructure. We thought it'd be fun to get you guys in there and playing with some filter sets. So certainly infrastructure is one of the things we want to look at, as well as the APIs for using New Relic. Solving our audio problems here. To do that, we got to get you in. I brought this up earlier. There are a couple of caveats to getting you into the account. This is another session, so I feel like I have to bring up the safe harbor slide. It's something you'll see at every single session. One more shot at, and that is that we're going to make you guys all admins in this NRU training account. If that makes you uncomfortable because your email address may be exposed to somebody else, let us know. We'll get you out of the account, or at least get that email address out of the account. Some of you may also have what's known as single sign-on, or the SAML integration with your existing accounts. And that'll also prevent you from being able to switch into this NRU training account and really be able to use that there. To solve that particular problem, generally what we do is we register you with a personal email address rather than the company email address. We'll have you actually just type your email address in. It takes about, 30 seconds a person. We've got a big group, but we've got a couple of us in here that can add you into the account. Has anybody tried to log in and notice that they've got a new account? Let's see, maybe we'll scope how big a problem we have, right? Is everybody able to log into New Relic and be able to see the NRU? All right, let's do this in reverse. Who can't see the NRU training account when they log in? All right, so we're going to come, either David or I will be around each one of you. We're going to solve that problem sort of one at a time, right? We've got 10 or 15 in the room, so it's not too bad. Our plan for the rest of you is to allow you to get in, really look at an account that's got service maps with labels. You're free to create sort of any alert policy in here. The big thing that we looked at before the break were some of the new alerting features. So we talked a little bit about going into one of these policies here. The JVM health metrics, web percentiles, as we go and select a particular condition. We'll also see something called dynamic targeting, or the ability to create based on a label. And then last but not least, in Lou's keynote this morning, he mentioned NERCL alerting. So we've got the ability to sort of integrate some NERCL queries into the alerting infrastructure. We can kind of talk in a little bit more detail about how this works. We'll try to get everybody in, and as we work the room and develop new questions, maybe we'll talk about them kind of as a group. But this is really a chance for you guys to get some hands-on experience with infrastructure, or with some of the new alerting experiences. I don't have a specific agenda for you guys to follow in this particular training, but we're going to be filtering throughout the room, trying to help you guys solve problems and explore more in a hands-on way with New Relic. Does anybody have any questions about maybe what the content was before lunch? I'm not sure. How many people were here before lunch? All right, so that's a fair group. Many of the others may be coming into this a little bit more, a little colder. We didn't do too much before lunch. We mainly talked about service maps as well as the application of labels to our applications, and how those labels could be used in a number of different ways. We saw them in service maps. We saw them in alerts. We saw them in overview page as well. All right, so let's we'll take a short break here while David and I help a few people get into the account. Does anybody have any burning questions about New Relic and some of the new features that they may have seen today that maybe I can help go over as a group before we get started here? Yeah. Whose favorite feature was NERCL alerting? Anybody dying for NERCL alerting? All right, so I got a couple people that we're gonna expect to see some NERCL alerting get created here as well. Service maps is another one, and then infrastructure is something that is designed to allow you guys to play with here in a way that doesn't require you to go modify your existing production infrastructure. We've got an account here for you guys to use right away. All right, we'll take a sort of a short break. I'll kill the mic up here so we can run around and help a few people get into the account. And if you have questions along the way, please feel free to raise your hand. We'll try to get to everybody as we go. We've got about an hour-ish, maybe a little less than an hour now. A little less than an hour to kind of play around with this NRU training account. Yeah. Oh, so you should get, so it's a good question. The question is, how do you get started? All right, where did I start from? In my case, I logged into New Relic, right? So I was already a user. And when I logged into New Relic, I did come to a default account. That may be your company account. I went up to the top right-hand menu, right? If you don't have multiple accounts, you may not realize this as well, right? The switch account allows us to move based on that login into different accounts. You guys will have a couple of new choices. There will be a New Relic University. I think you'll have the sub account in there as well. The sub account is mildly interesting as well. It's got a Python, a Ruby, and a Node app, in case anybody's interested in exploring some of the other languages available. In the pet clinic, we use Java. I think the sub account also has a .NET app. It's a little spotty, but it's there. It's deployed in Azure, right? So we try to give you an example condition for just about everything. We've got a background app, we've got a Ruby app, we've got a Node app, a .NET, a Java, etc. The TSS app, this is our technical sales and service team, is also in there as well. I don't think you guys will see the Demotron app though. That's I don't believe you. So you should be able to log into New Relic and use the switch account to get to the New Relic University account. If you're interested in one of the things that they are doing in the troubleshooting lab that I can point out, sorry, I'm in the wrong account. The NRU training account is the one I was thinking of. One of the things that they're doing in the 101 class is troubleshooting a particular performance problem. If you're interested in more details about that particular performance problem, tools notes. So one of the other features in New Relic is the ability to create a note from a chart that you see in APM. We've created a particular note based off of a chart for a load test that we ran. We ran a 50, 100, 150 thread test, concurrent user test against this Java app. And unfortunately, our response time is going up and to the right. And that's not what we want to see. Using this note, we can actually get directly to the particular time frame. This one's back on, what, November 11th at 9:40 p.m., right? So this is not current data. But this note is based on a historical note for a performance problem. And if you're really good, you can solve this particular performance problem for us. It is written in Java, but solving this particular problem shouldn't require too much Java knowledge. This is really just using New Relic to sort of drill into this particular problem and see if you can spot where this application is spending its time and what the cause of that is. It's kind of interesting. In this case, we can use infrastructure to mix this in. So for a few of you that have questions about infrastructure, we may point you off to this note as a way to sort of see how the two products, APM and infrastructure, or browser and infrastructure, work together. Yeah. Yeah, so if it's working correctly, you should be able to go to the upper right and pull down to select Switch Account. And then if we don't have that the NRU training account there, we'll come around and add you to it. The script is still running, so it's still adding a few people, and a few people that have been added. Again, you may have SSO, so that you may see it in the list. The usual symptom here is you may see it in the list, but are unable to switch to that account. That's usually an indication that the SAML integration is set up, and it's not allowing you to do that. So what we do in those instances is just have you register a personal email address. It takes about a minute each. We'll walk around with a laptop and have you type in your email address rather than tell it to me. I'll have you type it in, and we should get you in there pretty quick. Yeah, so we'll be working our way through the room. That's right. Anybody else have any questions before we get started? All right. I'll open it up to any questions about any new Relic product. All right. Let's get started. We've got about 35 minutes left, so David and I will kind of work our way out. Maybe I'll work from the front of the room towards the back, and David's going to work his way from the back of the room towards the front. So I apologize for the people in the middle of the room. It'll be the slowest. All right. We talked a little bit about what these applications were in the first session, but just kind of as a review of what we're looking at, because it's not necessarily obvious. We've got 3 different applications for New Relic Pet Clinic. It's basically the same application deployed a number of times. And when we deployed this application, we're also rolling up the statistics or the measurement from each of the individual applications. So while I can drill in and look at the deployment of one instance of this particular application, we're also reporting all 3 of these applications into sort of one rolled up application, one New Relic Pet Clinic. So I can see the combined results from all 3 of these applications in one. We do that with configuration. Right? So in our configuration file, we actually specify multiple applications, and New Relic will then report the results of all that time series data to multiple applications in our list. It's useful when you have, for instance, collections of services, and we want to look at all of those services in aggregate. Yes, each service is important in its own right, a user service, an order service, et cetera. But the aggregation of all of those services, whether it's all of my Python services, all of my Node services, can also be important. I may want to measure across all of those aggregates. And that's essentially what we have here in New Relic Pet Clinic. The one that doesn't fit in the rest of them is FoodMe. FoodMe is a completely different application here for really a different purpose. FoodMe is a Node application, and its primary purpose is to demonstrate single-page applications. So Lou talked about single-page applications this morning and the support for single-page applications. Well, that's what this FoodMe application is. The FoodMe application is best viewed in the browser application, where you'll get a view of what the single-page load charts look like, which changes our normal browser load charts into something that's now capable of keeping track of not just page load time, but also the individual route change times. And I'm looking at the wrong view here, so we'll go into page views. This is telling me all about it. Oh, goodness. There we go. Zoom back in. So if you're interested in single-page applications, FoodMe makes an excellent example of what single-page application support is. And if I were to highlight it very quickly, it would be the ability to drill into the route changes that are occurring on the client side, as opposed to just the page loads that are being delivered from the server. So the single-page app support, I think Lou hit it a little quick this morning, but certainly feel free to explore the FoodMe app in browser a little bit more to understand exactly how we can filter, right? Or this is literally almost like an insights filter. The small box that appears in the upper right-hand corner would be familiar to a lot of insights users as an insights filter that's being applied here. We can filter down our browser interaction events in browser down to just the route changes that are occurring down on the client side. If you're familiar with some of the single-page app frameworks like Ember or Angular, then this will make a lot of sense. You often lack visibility into what's happening down there on the client side because you're not coming back to the server. There's not a page load. We call those instead route changes. They're occurring on the client side. And just like the page loads, they're timed appropriately, right? So we've got breakdowns based on those route changes, how much time they're spending in the DOM manipulation versus JavaScript, as well as the throughput. So very similar to browsers, except now providing you that visibility into the client-side activity. One of the other accounts in here is called NRU sub. We use NRU sub to help demonstrate some of the other features of New Relic. One of those is kind of a background task. Docker coins this is all deployed out on Docker, and I'm looking at a specific time window. Let's go back to now. Docker Coins is busy mining coins for us. It's not really mining anything valuable here, but it is creating hashes and looking at those hashes and determining whether they look like a coin if they start with a 0. And so in this case, we're keeping track of not web transaction time, but non-web time. This is a batch or a cron job that's running in the background. It's got a worker loop running to do all that. Again, we talked about service maps, and knowing nothing about Docker coins whatsoever, I can pull up a service map for this Docker coin. I've already got one saved here, right? But if we gone, maybe create a new map. I showed this earlier. And added our, clicked on one of those applications. It's added all of the links for me to dynamically connect that app to all its pieces. We can see how worker is talking to a random number generator and a hasher to do all of that hashing. Again, without knowledge of this app, the service map gives me that sort of high-level overview of what's happening. And I can zoom out and get a traffic light view of how this set of applications, rather than just one application, actually all play together. So a couple different ways to visualize or see how your apps work. As you get into larger and larger deployments, more and more applications in your account, this all becomes a little bit more important for us to manipulate and work with large complex sets. We can save our applications, our application layout here. Maybe we'll add the web UI to it. We can see Redis down here in the corner. Redis is being treated as a database, but it's not. In this case, our database is Redis, so if it looks a little odd, that's by design in this app. How's everybody doing? Does anybody have any questions about what they're seeing in the account? Yes. Yeah, good question. So the question here is, what do the arrows on this service map mean? The arrows are essentially lines of communication. So we're adding attributes to the request and responses that are going to being sent to random number generator, for instance. And because both the random number generator and the worker are both being monitored by New Relic, this is essentially cross-application tracing, and we're drawing the lines based on the traffic flowing between those two different applications. So it's a dynamic view. Somebody this morning asked, could I go back in time? Could I go look at this last Tuesday, for instance? And service maps are meant to show you an in-moment picture, right? This is what's currently happening. So the example there was a development environment that's not running all the time, right? When it's not running, service maps aren't going to show you those lines. Is the service map generated from the data that we insert into the header? In a way, yes, it is generated from that. I mean, we wouldn't be able to make the connections without those keys, if you will, right, connecting the various pieces. But it's also the power of NRDB and being able to query this fast enough to make a service map work. That also, right? Yes. So yes, it's partly the attributes plus magic sauce, I guess. I don't know, right? It's a little bit of all of it. Can you manually connect the arrows? Yeah, we get that question a lot. You can if you create a custom node, right? So a custom node would allow you to represent something in your infrastructure even though you're not currently monitoring it. So you can create custom nodes and decide how they're connected to the other parts and pieces. The custom node, because it's not necessarily connected to any monitoring, isn't going to It's going to visually represent on the chart, but it's not going to update with response time, for instance. If it's, you may use this to represent an F5 load balancer. That in and of itself may not be monitored, but it does represent an important piece of your infrastructure to a team that's going to come in and look at this. So you'd have to save the map as well to get that behavior. But, yeah. Yeah, we see that. We see that with Redis. The other thing we saw this morning was the ability to add some of the infrastructure context into this. So if we go and look at our Demotron account, I'm sorry I don't have this one for you guys in the account, but we can take a closer look at the ability to drill into some of our, let's see, our instance data. Oops. There we go. It's telling us about this, and now it's noticed. So it gave me a little option that we wanted to update this particular map. This map had been saved before the instances were there. You guys may have that problem as well if you've got a saved map, right? Adding the infrastructure context to this allows us to see the specific instances that are actually running there. So not just monitoring the database in terms of how many connections it has, but down to the instance level that's actually captured. It's not represented here, but it's also captured in the individual transaction traces themselves. So as you look at a transaction trace, we'll be able to drill into that detail where we get stack trace details, for instance. We get the custom attributes that we've added. And one of the new pieces to that is going to be essentially database instancing information. So as you're talking to a database, it's not just this much database time being taken up, but it's this much time against this particular instance of the database. Exciting stuff coming. Yeah. I'm not sure, where does the one appear? Oh, yes, I see. So the question is, what does this one up here represent in the little half bubble? Essentially, this is an outgoing connection that's not represented on the map, right? So I can infer from this that there's more beyond order service that I'm not seeing on this particular map. And clicking on it allows me to throw in this Redis instance as well onto the map. To help show. So that's meant, again, as you simplify some of these maps, right? As an ops person, I may not be interested in the database until I need it, right? And then I want to be able to expand that map and get more detail. And the 1 or the 2 or the 3, depending on how many outgoing connections there are, is meant to be your visual cue that there's more here that you're not seeing, but that may be by design, right? Maybe what we were trying to do. Excellent questions. What else can I answer for you guys? It's a bit free form, but.
Can I export maps so I can share them?
Can you export maps? Ooh. So the question is, can you export a map? There's no real easy way. You can create a shortcut to the map, is what I would say. So as a saved map, it will get a dedicated URL that you can use as a favorite. But yes, saving a map, I feel terrible even saying it. Screenshot. I didn't say that. I didn't say it out loud, did I? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Hopefully this doesn't feed back on me. Made it. Felt like the plane was taking off there. The question is, can you create a public URL for somebody to come in and take a look at a service map when they're not a New Relic user? No, we don't have that capability. There are a couple other places where you can create an embedded link, for instance, for particular charts. Notes have the ability to create a publicly accessible URL there. Service maps don't. My answer to that usually is that users are free. Right? There's no per user cost to using New Relic. Lou preached this in the keynote this morning. Visibility across the team. We would like to get your whole team in there and increase that visibility. And so, add more users, get them in there, and let them see the service maps as opposed to not. Service maps in that way. I'm totally speaking for the engineering organization here, right? But it generally is something for teams that are involved in the application design. There are other parts of the application, insights charts, for instance, that have broader audiences, but often the people that are using the service maps are trying to narrow down very complex problems as quickly as they can, and that makes it less appropriate for other audiences. Right? So, good questions, great questions. We've only got about 10 more minutes left, so I know this is a bit freeform. The idea here is to give you guys some hands-on access. We're going to leave you guys in the account both for the rest of today as well as tomorrow, probably some of Friday as well, I imagine. But the goal is to sort of allow you to play with this account with infrastructure in it while you're here at FutureStack. Make sure you get all your questions answered, so you're not just reliant on the booths necessarily to see some of these new features, but you can log in and explore these as you're in some of the other sessions as well. A couple other things to certainly talk about are all of the booths over there as well. We're also using a Slack room to ask questions. So we have and I don't have an easy way to bring this up, but I was gonna. This is a joint page. I'll bring this up in. We'll bring this link up in a larger window. But we've got a tiny URL to link to essentially a Slack room to allow you guys to ask questions again inside of a Slack room. Not all your questions are comfortable coming out in a public forum like this with lots of people watching. So we're also going to direct you to a Slack room as well to try to get those questions answered and maybe keep some history for some of the questions that we're answering as well. I'll put that up. We've got about 10 minutes left, so I'll put that up here at the end as a way to drive more traffic into our Slack channel. The Slack channel, I'm not sure if I can, let's see if I can pull it up here. My reason for pulling this up is to show just a little bit about one of the integration features. In this case, the integration of the alerts product into Slack. So in the alert policies or in the alert channels here, one of the channels that we'll see in the New Relic account is a Slack channel. So that when my notifications are raised, we often think about notification via email or potentially something like PagerDuty. But at New Relic, we were big HipChat users. Now we're big Slack users, and so there's somebody doesn't have access. But the thing to notice was the formatted Slack channel message here, right? So as those alert notifications are generated, we can essentially fire off a formatted message into the channel, right? This isn't. Or rather, Slack's got a lot of nice integration here, so we're able to format the message that we actually put into the Slack channel. One of the other integrations that we use that's currently in the account as well for alerts we've got lots of emails being added here. But what I wanted to do is go down to the alerts webhook. It's useful. I think somebody mentioned this in. They mentioned this in one of the Insights talks that I was listening to earlier. Basically, teams getting alert fatigue, right, and becoming difficult to sort of quantify alert fatigue. One of the ways to do that is to use Insights and send a notification into Insights as that system of record, and then use Insights to chart essentially alert events and which teams are being notified, which applications are causing alerts, which conditions are violating the most frequently. And so that Insights analysis along with alerts can be pretty powerful. All different kinds of integrations enabled via what's known as web hooks. So the Slack integration is another web hook. There are lots of fun web hooks to play with. Oh, I'm in the wrong Demotron account here. That's why I've got so many users. That's what you guys should be seeing. All right, that's better. Much less. One of the other things we often talk about with alerts is the ability to alert a user. A couple of people, as I was walking around, were asking about the mobile application, right? Could I see the NRU training account on my mobile application? There is a mobile iOS as well as a mobile Android application. One of the advantages to alerting a New Relic user is if they have that application installed, they'll get a push notification on the device. I'm getting used to push notifications. I'm an old email guy, but I'm getting used to push notifications now. And they're a different way to sort of get that notification more personally on the phone. Yes, you could still go a more roundabout way to PagerDuty and have PagerDuty text you, but sometimes going directly to the user can be useful as well. More questions? Any more questions? We've got about only 5 more minutes left before I release you to the next session. Feel free to play around in here. There's nothing specific that I want you to do other than to explore infrastructure over the next couple days. Make sure you get a chance to play with that and understand how it can benefit.